Level 1. The slave, servus. You were not born free. That fact organizes everything else about your existence. Where you sleep, what you eat, whether you can marry, whether your children belong to you or to the man who owns you. In Rome, approximately 1/3 of the population is enslaved. 1 in 3 people you pass on the street exists in the same condition you do, owned legally as property. Your Dominos is a merchant in Ostia. He is not cruel by the standards of the time, a standard that would be unrecognizable to any future century that examines it. He feeds you adequately. He doesn't beat you for small infractions. He allows you to keep a small portion of money you earn doing tasks beyond your assigned duties. Your assigned duties are the docks. Every morning before dawn, you move cargo, grain, amphorae of wine and olive oil, timber, the endless material flow of an empire that consumes everything and produces the infrastructure to consume more. Your body is a tool. It is maintained the way tools are maintained, sufficiently, functionally, with attention to continued usefulness rather than comfort. You have a wife. She belongs to a different household 2 streets away. You see her on Sundays if both your domini permit it. Your son is 4 years old. He belongs to her dominus legally. You think about this at night when the thinking is unavoidable. You've learned not to think about it during the day. There is a path out. Manumission. Freedom granted by your owner, earned through exceptional service, purchased through the peculium you've been saving for 3 years. It's slow. It's uncertain. It depends entirely on the continued goodwill of a man whose goodwill is not guaranteed. You save anyway. What else is there to do? Level 2. The freedman. Libertus. Your manumission papers are 6 months old. You carry them everywhere. Not because you need to produce them constantly. You don't. But because the weight of them in your tunic is the weight of something that took 4 years to accumulate, and that can be taken away if the wrong magistrate decides your papers are irregular and you can't prove otherwise quickly enough. You work at the docks still. Same docks, different status. You negotiate your own wages now. Modest ones, because freedmen without established relationships start at the bottom of the labor market regardless of their skills. But yours, the money is yours. Your former dominus is now your patron. This is the Roman system. Manumission doesn't sever the relationship. It transforms it. You owe him certain duties. Showing up when called, supporting his interests, voting his preferred candidates in the assemblies that freedmen are permitted to participate in. In exchange, he provides references, introductions, the social infrastructure that a man without family connections desperately needs. You are building something. It's slow and it's fragile and it depends on a dozen things outside your control. But it's yours in a way that nothing before it was yours. Your son is still enslaved. You are saving for his manumission now. Everything else can wait. Level 3, the legionary, Miles. You enlisted at 18. The Legion doesn't ask where you came from, not precisely. It asks whether you're a citizen, whether you're physically fit, whether you can follow orders. You answered yes to all 3, truthfully to 2 of them. The citizenship question required a small arrangement with a records clerk in your hometown that cost you 2 months of dock wages and a jar of decent wine. Worth it. Legionary service is 25 years. You knew this when you signed. 25 years in exchange for a salary, equipment, food, housing, medical care, and at the end, a land grant or a cash payment and the formal confirmation of citizenship that you technically already claimed. The training nearly kills you, not the physical training. You've been moving cargo since you were 12 and your body is accustomed to punishment. The discipline, the absolute, total, non-negotiable subordination of individual will to unit cohesion that the Legion requires and enforces with a consistency that makes your former dominus seem flexible. You march 20 miles a day in full kit. You build camps. You dig ditches. You practice formations until they happen without thought. The scutum raised, the gladius thrust, the lockstep of 80 men moving as one organism that turns individual humans into something that has broken armies 3 times its size for 3 centuries. Your first campaign is in Germania. Cold, wet, an enemy that doesn't fight the way the training assumed, that melts into forests and strikes from angles the formations weren't designed for. You lose 3 men from your contubernium in the first month. You learn what the training couldn't teach, that war is the gap between the plan and what actually happens, and that the Legion's greatness is its ability to function inside that gap when lesser armies collapse. You function. You survive. You keep going. Level 4, the Centurion, Centurio. 15 years in and you command 80 men. The vine staff, the vites, is the symbol of your rank. You carry it. You've used it. The legion permits centurions to strike soldiers for infractions, and the permission is exercised with enough consistency that your 80 men perform their duties with the specific alertness of people who understand that failure has immediate physical consequences. You are harsh because the legion requires harshness. You are fair because unfairness creates the kind of resentment that becomes unreliability at the worst possible moment, which in combat is the only moment that matters. Your optio, your second, is a man named Gaius who has been with you for 6 years. He knows what you're going to say before you say it. In the chaos of a battle line, where orders can't be heard and signals can be missed, the fact that your second knows your mind is worth more than any tactical advantage. You clear 3,750 denarii a year, 5 times a common legionary's pay. You have savings, a small property in Campania registered in your name. Plans for after the service that have become more concrete as the service has become more familiar. The men respect you, not warmly. Warmth is not what the relationship is for. They respect you the way soldiers respect a centurion who keeps them alive through competence and demands from them the standard that makes them worth keeping alive. That's enough. In this world, that's more than most men get. Level 5. The Equestrian. Eques. You were born into this. The Equestrian Order, the second tier of Rome's aristocracy, below the senators but above everyone else, is defined by property. 400,000 sesterces minimum. Your family has had it for 3 generations. The horse and the symbol of the order, the military obligation that the property was originally meant to fund, is more ceremonial now than functional. What the equestrian class actually is in the late Republic and early Empire is the administrative backbone of an empire too large to run on senatorial families alone. You serve as a prefect, military command of an auxiliary unit, non-citizen soldiers from the provinces who fight for Rome in exchange for citizenship at the end of their service. Your unit is stationed in Judea. You have been in Judea for 3 years, and your opinion of Judea is that it is hot, complicated, and inhabited by people whose relationship with Roman authority is the most contentious you've encountered in any province you've served in. The administration of empire at this level is the unglamorous work that makes the glamorous parts possible: tax collection, infrastructure maintenance, the endless negotiation with local elites who have their own interests and will cooperate with Roman authority precisely as much as Roman authority makes cooperation preferable to resistance. You make cooperation preferable, usually through patience and relationship building, occasionally through the presence of your unit at a location where their presence clarifies the available options. You are good at both. Level 6. The Senator. Your family has been in the Senate for 4 generations. The Senate of the late Republic was genuinely powerful. The Senate of the Empire is something more complicated, an institution that retains enormous prestige and real administrative function, while the actual decisions about war, taxation, and imperial policy are made by the man who holds the tribunician power and the imperium, and who calls himself with carefully calibrated modesty the princeps, the first citizen. You navigate this with the skill that 4 generations of family practice provides. You know which topics are for discussion and which are for ratification. You know which of your colleagues are genuinely independent and which are extensions of the imperial court's will. You know the difference between speaking in the Senate and being heard in the Senate, and you've learned to prioritize the latter. Your wealth is substantial. Land in 3 provinces. Business interests run through freedmen agents who provide a comfortable layer of deniability between senatorial dignity and commercial activity. Senators aren't supposed to engage in trade, a prohibition everyone ignores through exactly this kind of arrangement. You have a house on the Aventine, a villa in Tuscany, and an apartment building in Ostia that generates reliable rental income regardless of what happens in the political sphere. The political sphere is where reputations are made and destroyed. The apartment building is where wealth is quietly accumulated. You attend to both with equal seriousness. Level 7. The General, Imperator. You have won a war, not a skirmish, not a punitive expedition. A war organized resistance by a foreign people against Roman authority, suppressed over 3 years of campaigning that involved 4 legions, a logistical operation spanning 2 provinces, and the specific grinding patience of a commander who understood that the enemy's strategy was to make the campaign so costly in time and resources that Rome would negotiate rather than continue. Rome did not negotiate. You did not allow it to. Your triumph, the formal celebration granted by the Senate to a victorious general, processes through Rome on a day in October when the entire city turns out. Your soldiers march behind you. The captives walk in chains ahead of you. The loot is displayed on wagons that take 3 hours to pass any given point on the route. You ride in a chariot. Behind you, a slave holds a golden crown above your head and whispers continuously in your ear, "Remember that you are mortal." The reminder is necessary. On a day like this, with Rome cheering and the weight of a successful war behind you and the political capital that victory produces already being calculated by everyone in your circle, on a day like this, mortality feels abstract. You remember it anyway. The men who forget it tend to make decisions that remind them forcibly. Level 8. The Emperor Augustus. There is no title. This is the thing that people outside Rome don't understand. There is no word for what you are. Dictator was Caesar's mistake, the word that made the blade inevitable. You learned from that. You are princeps, first citizen. You are Augustus, the revered one. You hold the tribunician power, the proconsular imperium, the command of the armies, the loyalty of the legions, the treasury. You hold all of it simultaneously, permanently, with no formal mechanism for removing you short of the blade. You are careful about the blade. You govern an empire of 60 million people across 3 continents. The infrastructure, those roads that were being built before your grandfather was born, connects it. The legions defend it. The bureaucracy administers it. The Pax Romana, the Roman peace, the cessation of the civil wars that tore the Republic apart, is the achievement that justifies everything else, including the things that don't bear justification in daylight. Your day begins before dawn. Dispatches from every province. Reports from the commanders of every frontier. The endless paperwork of empire, petitions, appointments, legal decisions that can only be made at the apex because the apex is where the buck stops when every lower level has failed to resolve something. You eat simply, you sleep badly, you trust almost no one, not because you're paranoid, but because you've been in this position long enough to understand that the people around you are managing their relationship with you rather than simply being present with you, and that the two things are not the same. Your wife is your most reliable advisor. You know this and occasionally resent it because reliability in an advisor creates dependency, and dependency is vulnerability. You trust her anyway. What else can you do? The empire is the largest, most complex, most durable political structure the world has ever produced. You sit at its center. Everything flows toward you, and everything flows away from you, and the machine runs because the machine was built by people smarter than any individual and has been running long enough that it runs itself in the spaces between decisions. Your job is not to run the empire. Your job is to be the empire, the human form of the idea that holds it together, the face that the legions follow and the provinces fear and the Senate performs loyalty toward. You are 71 years old. You have been doing this for 42 years. You are tired in a way that sleep doesn't touch. The road outside your window was built 200 years ago. It will be here long after you. That thought is, depending on the day, either comforting or the loneliest thing you've ever considered. Somewhere in Ostia tonight, a boy is watching the ships come in. He is 12 years old. His father is a freedman who works the docks. His grandfather was a slave. He watches the ships and he thinks about the legions, the men who march on those roads, who hold the frontiers, who make the empire possible. He is going to enlist. He has already decided. He doesn't know about the 25 years. He doesn't know about Germania and the cold and the men who don't come back. He doesn't know about the vine staff or the centurion's discipline or the specific loneliness of command. He knows the ships. He knows the roads. He knows that Rome is the largest thing in the world and that somewhere inside it there is a place for him. He's right. There is always a place. The machine needs feeding. It always has. The boy will find his place in it. They always do. The road was waiting for him before he was born.